Away with the first game, 15-8. We joined the match in the second, the Soviets with a commanding 12-4 lead. The relaxed and laid-back approach we saw from Bill Neville in the first set has well and truly gone, and far more anxiety and concern creeping into the language, the body language there of Bill Neville, realizing that his side is in danger of being swept aside here, possibly in 3 games. An enormously difficult job for the United States if they drop this game, which they seem in danger of doing. Allen appeals to the referee. Mr. Thrappensay putting the side out to the Soviet Union for the palmed ball by Allen, and problems continue for the home team.
The Soviet Union.
13-4, Shardanov with the serve.
There we go.
That's one that Kuznetsov couldn't get to. A dig out of bounds. Valiant attempt made here by this tall man who risked life and limb.
Replacing number 1, Allen.
Cameras, table and spectators in his way. Allen has been replaced in the United States side. Good block by Craig Buck. Point to the USA. It's 13-5. Buck gets the better of Volleyball there. The Americans at last add to their scoreline. It's 13-5. And the ball is out. It's 13-6. Silnikov going way too deep. Valdo Acosta getting through the block of Kuznetsov. Another point to the USA. It's 13-7. Having their most productive passage of this second game. 13-7, and the Soviet coach prompted here to call timeout again to try and stop this American roll. A successful ploy he used in the first game.
Тяжело, блок он паснул, блок он принял. Ну, середину блока и 10 метров в аут. Обманите, отдайте, пусть они. Нельзя же так самим все сплавлять. Нельзя этого делать. Первый раз такое, чтобы больше не было. Поехали. Куда? Стой! Свисток.
Here's the wave chair, sometimes known as the Mexican wave, but in fact it began here in the city of Seattle back in the 1970s, although it became internationally popular at the World Cup, I think it was, in Mexico in 1986. It was here at the football stadium that a well-known cheerleader by the name of Crazy Joe began the so-called Mexican wave way back, I think it was 1978, when at a football match she exhorted fans across the opposite side of the stadium to get in and support the local side, whereupon there was this spontaneous reaction from the crowd who got up and cheered and clapped, and everyone around the stadium proceeded to do it. And the wave was born, but it really became famous, of course, at the World Cup and has since been known internationally as the Mexican wave, but this is the town where it emanated. This is the town where it started from. Side out, USA, 13-8. The Americans clinging almost to a lifeboat here in this second game, but they're still alive. Off the block, Dmitry Fomin wins the side out for the Soviet Union. Kuznetsov. Troy Tanner with the set, and Craig Buck hooks it away. The buck stops here, says the American to the Soviets at the net. As they say, he put it downtown and there was no one at home. It's 13-8. Side out to the Soviet Union. American hand just getting on it. The hand of Gaspar. They're serving. Gaspar with the set. And dogged determination there from Scott Fortune with an angry slap, an angry smash, which penetrates the Russian block. Scott Fortune, who's the American captain, who's into the match for the first time. Brian Ivey, another newcomer into the game with his serve off the block. Shatanov wins it back for the Soviet Union. Score remains 13-8. The deflection of Gaspar's arm. Soviet Union having difficulty closing out this second game. They led 13-6, but it seemed a long time ago. They've been unable to add to their score since then. The Americans fighting back. It's brought the crowd alive here at the Heck-Ed Pavilion, as it's known in the city. The little dink shop almost surprises the United States. Barely keeping it alive. And there, a rare unforced error with complete and utter confusion in the Russian defense. They stood round looking at each other, and three guys there, and not one of them was able to get a hand to the ball. 13-9, a valuable point to the United States, but the Soviet Union quickly win the side out. Shachin to Troy Tanner. Costa, he's fired up now. This 25-year-old from Texas, with that tremendous vertical leap that he's got. There's few in the sport of volleyball that get much higher off the floor than Acosta. Kept alive by the Soviet Union, and Brian Ivey couldn't quite get the dip that he wanted. Side out Soviet Union, 13-9. Shatanov. Now this is the best attacking play we've seen from the Americans since this match started. There's more fluency, there's more cohesiveness about their play around the net. They're getting these attacking ploys together, which they've been unable to do so far in the match. And we nearly had a very dangerous near collision between those two American players. Goodness gracious me. Bashing heads. Just missing each other there. Costa off the fingertips. Timeout, United States, 13-9. And it's this man, the rocket server, trying to pull the United States back into this game. He gets a good one. Fomin puts it down for the Soviet Union. Almost makes it look easy. 22-year-old from Moscow, a new member in the Soviet Union team in 1989. Brian Ivey. The three-man block led by Brian Ivey foils the Soviet Union. A six-handed wall. 13-10. Marvelous fight back here by the Americans. It was 13-5 at one stage. Ivey, he manages to keep it alive. Gaspar, and that's another one for the U.S. Blood enough decides it's time for a timeout, and this capacity crowd of over 7,500 people on their feet, and they probably feel at last that these very expensive seats they've bought here tonight were worth paying for. $50, 50 New Zealand dollars a seat to watch this match this evening.
Make them prove it where the things start to tighten up a little bit more safe. Stay wide and jump in on it.
He is serious. He's taken his glasses off for the first time this evening.
Он сейчас концовку будет ему пасовать. выход, да? Диму в 4, а Шатчина первым к себе.
Well, if nothing else, the United States have become the first country to take more than 10 points off the Soviet Union in a game here at the volleyball competition. It's 13-12. And the Russians completely stymied here at the moment. Some excellent blocking at the net by the Americans. It's 13-all. What a comeback by the Americans. We're all tied up. Platonov, cool and calm as ever, making some substitutions. And that one goes deep as well. It's 14-13. Can you believe it? It's game point to the USA. They looked out for the count at 5-13. As this ruthless Russian machine seemed inevitably to roll the Americans like they did the Brazilians last night, but the Americans with a wonderful fight back. There it is. This was now a fiercely competitive match. The USA matching the Soviets point for point. We pick up the match in the third game. The score's tied at 10-all. Ryan Ivey stymies the Soviets again, who can't get their noses in front. They've caught the Americans a few times in this third game, but they've never had their noses in front.
Side out, the Soviet Union. Serving is number 2, Andrei Kuznetsov.
Kuznetsov will serve for the Soviets. Ivey from the back row.
Side out, USA.
A brave attempt by Shutinov in the dig out there. He was way out in the country, well away from the court, and he really did do a splendid job to keep that off the deck. Didn't fail by much to get it to his teammate. The off-speed slammer there, which rather surprised the Americans. And coming into the match for the first time, Vladimir Samsonov versus Shutinov. 10-all. Samsonov immediately into the match with his service. Fortune puts that one away for the United States. Side out to the Americans, and Fortune to serve. Sherdnik.
Soviet Union.
Sherdnik going up above the fake and putting it away for the USSR. Gaspar takes it around the wrong side of the antenna, point to the Soviet Union. And so the Soviets ahead by 11-10, ahead for the first time in the third game. Kept alive well by the Americans. Koster. But this time, the Soviets prevail as Sherdnik puts it away. It's 12-10. There's the replay. And Troy Tanner couldn't get to it. And timeout USA at 12-10 in favor of the Soviets. Only for the first time,
If you want
led
them
the
make them,
Americans
want them short.
in this game.
All right. That's right. Don't worry. Get on and focus on this play. Okay. Here we go. Let's go and let's get back and shoot toughness today.
Back in right here.
Right now. Okay.
Right here.
Hey, USA.
Мы приготовились. Ты приготовился, поднял мячишко. Ты приготовился, заблокировал. Юра, на Бака ты настраиваешься. Ты сейчас не потеряй по земле. Он может дать ему.
continuing to serve for the Soviet Union.
As the timeout ends, the Soviets leading in game 3 by 12-10. Bill Neville telling his team, now's the time to do it right. Now's the time to move the ball around. But Acosta is blocked by Shedidnik. It's 13-10. Crucial points here in this third game. The Soviets sensing that they have a chance to take the initiative again in this game, which they haven't had since midway through that second game. Game point to the Soviet Union at 14-10. They can jump out to a 2-1 lead here. A substitution made in the US team. John Root comes back in after a long spell on the bench. Troy Tanner has been rested. Now John Root was substituted midway through that first game after a run of horrendous errors, and the Americans win the side out through Craig Buck. What's the call? Off the block. Side out to the Soviet Union. It looked as if Roots may in fact have kept it in the court, but he couldn't get to it. 14-10. So it's game point again for the Soviet Union. That's 2 that the Americans have saved, and again through that very effective, aggressive blocking at the net by Craig Buck. Some have got other priorities here at the moment other than the volleyball. In fact, that's Craig Buck's sister, her daughter, watching at the moment. 14-11. Acosta, well, when his service works, it's almost unplayable, but more often than not, it's a service error that comes from Acosta. That was the most untimely one for the Americans. It's given the Soviets their third game point at 14-11. It's out. It's 3 the Americans have saved, and it's back with Craig Buck. Side down by 3. And there's one of them saved. It's 14-12. The Americans who seem to produce their best volleyball when they know they have to come from behind, when they know the situation is desperate. That's when we seem to be seeing the best from the Americans. It's 14-13. A repeat of the second game. The Americans on a roll. Four big American paws going up above the net with the block. It's 14-13. And the Soviet Union will try to cool the Americans down with a timeout.
Он играет по передаче, начинает махать. Вот такая, против него двойной блок висит. Не надо его первым пускать, я тебе в прошлый раз сказал. Тира пойдет, его сюда втащил откуда-то. Не надо под себя играть. Передача между, все под себя.
American sporting coach. It's your game, boys. It's your game, boys. He tells them, pumping his players up. And 14-13, but the Americans trailing by 1 point. And a wicked slam there from Shapunov. So for the 4th time in this third game, the Soviet Union serving for the game. The block. They've done it again. It's 13-14. This 21-year-old from California. He's big and he's mobile. And that was a very difficult dig there for the Soviets, and that's one they can't pick up. And the American captain, Scott Fortune, off the block. Number 17's the cap on the scoring. Silnikov sets it up.
Substitution for the Soviet Union. Number 4, Ruslan Olivia. Reversing number
Does not come down in bounds.
Serving is Andrei Kuznetsov. Point, the Soviet Union.
Fair. Wins the point for the Soviet Union. Now game point for the 5th time here for the Soviet Union as Kuznetsov serves at 15-14. It's deep. But it's the old familiar story. The Americans save it again. 6 saves in this 3rd game. They keep their hopes alive at 14-15. And John Roots serving for the USA. Remember, if it goes to 16 all, whoever wins the 17th point, kept alive by the Soviet Union, Kuznetsov. The point has gone to the United States. The Soviet Union claiming that it was out. No doubt about that one, however. That was definitely it. Good call from the line umpire. It's 15 all. Call against the United States.
For the United States, Javier Gaspar, number 11. Reversing number 14, Mark Arnold.
By Arnold. Kaspar comes back in. 15 all. Ollie could shut it up. Tied at 15. 17 will win it. Off the block. Side out to the USA at 15 all. And this crowd now becoming feverishly animated. It's out. It's 16-15 to the USA. And they, for the first time in this 3rd game, have arrived at game point. The Americans have saved 6. Can the Soviets save the first from the Americans? They have.
Side out, the Soviet Union. Serving is number 6, Yevgeny Krasnivikov.
Soviet Union.
Point, the Soviet Union. Yevgeny Krasnivikov attempting game.
Sherenik winning the medal at the net. 16 all. So whoever wins this next point wins this 3rd game. 17's the maximum. And Acosta, he's got it in. That powerful smash of Ubaldo Acosta. 16 all. Chance for the Soviet Union to save another point. Another game point from the Americans. And there it is, the Americans have done it again. An extraordinary repeat of the 2nd game. They've come back from the dead and won it at 17-16. The point goes to the Soviet Union. They lead 1-0.
Soviet Union.
Block back at Acosta. This time, any errors you make on your service can be very costly. So the Americans back at 1 all. Acosta, and I don't think we'll be seeing any of those bullet jump serves this time. He just ensures it gets across the net. The mistake from the Americans, it's 2-1 to the Soviets. Off the fingertip of Craig Buck. For number 10, you'll see as he reaches desperately, couldn't quite get the dig on that one. It goes to the Soviets. But the Americans reply with the smash from Brian Ivey, this key attacker in the American team tonight. It's 2 all. Craig Buck, the 88 Olympic team member. Serving. Some spectacular saves here by the Americans, keeping it alive. Buck punches it over the net. Acosta this time. This is great saving here by the Americans. And they win the point. The Americans taking a more conservative and defensive approach to the match in this fifth game. They're essentially maintaining the ball across the net. They're not trying to win with fierce smashes. They just want to keep the ball alive and allow for the Soviet Union to make the mistakes. That's exactly what happened there. Defensive error by the Soviets gave the point to the Americans, and they pick up another. And the USA assumes a 2-point lead. Full rally score a point, remember?
That's right. Hey, let's go.
And Craig Buck indicating to the floor attendants he wants the court wiped. But imagine the amount of perspiration that is shed in the course of 2.5 hours. Fiercely competitive volleyball of this nature. It's essential that that court is kept dry, or else serious injuries, of course, can occur to these players if they were to slip.
If you do that, I'll take that too, boys. Huh? No, the other guy will come on. Right here. Yeah, USA, keep it.
Continuing to serve for the United States is Craig Buck.
Fifth and deciding game, the rally game between the USA and the USSR. The team that wins this game, wins this match, will assume the lead in Group B of the volleyball competition. Cubans leading Group A with 2 wins from 2 matches. But this one going right down to the wire. Ivy again. But if there is a man of the match, it must surely be this man, Brian Ivy. Going the other way on the ball. Not a big gap, but enough for him to push the ball through. And now he will serve. A nice dig there. But the ball comes over and out of bounds. 5-3, 5-4 now.
So the
Americans were able to keep that play within the lines of the court. Remember, first team to 15 by 2. Or first team to 17 period. Ivy again. 6-4 to the USA. There's no doubt about these rally point games. They're tremendously exciting. Troy Tanner to serve for the USA. Look there. Finds empty room on the back court. 6-5. Andrei Kuznetsov to serve for the Soviet Union. He goes back very deep. A looping serve to Tanev, set by Gaspar. Ivy. A rather weak jam, and that's too deep from the Soviet Union man. And the Americans rather fortunate to come out of that rally with the point. They really gave it to the Soviets. Now, for the first time since the second game, Alan Allen, Samoan-born American, the man with the powerful outside slammer, the tremendous leap. One team gets to 8, we'll trade sides, change ends. Out of bounds off the Soviet block. The point goes to the USA. And the momentum very much with the Americans in this fifth game. 2 teams changing ends. The Americans getting to 8. 8-5 in this fifth and final game here at the Heck Edmondson Pavilion, and no one of this capacity crowd of 7,500 even contemplating an early departure from this game. The story of this matchup between the Soviet Union and the USA. The Soviets taking the first game and the fourth, the Americans winning the second and the third, and the Americans leading by 8-5. Past the halfway point in this fifth and final game. Alan Allen serving for the USA. He goes deep. Alec there. Krasilnikov. And it's too deep. 10-5. Come on, says Bill Neville. They've got the winning of this match, he believes, with that 4-point cushion in the 5th game. 6 points away from victory. Allen again. Kuznetsov, well blocked at the net by the Americans. Set by Gaspar, and that's another point to the Americans. Taking control of the 5th game at 10-5.
The Soviet Union.
And we have a timeout here for the Soviet Union. Platonov just to speak to his players.
Первым темпом. Из 8 передач ты одну сделал вторым темпом. Ну ты все отдал первым темпом.
Okay? All right, you're doing a nice job, nice mix. Let's just run it right now. Take charge of your team, huh? Okay? Nice job. Keep dancing here.
Они не забивают. Значит, закажи комбинацию, уведи по земле, туда-сюда, куда-то. Ну ты же сейчас опять, этот в зоне, а тот на месте. Ну.
And the Russian coach, Platonov, for the first time in this match, starting to display some desperation as he sees this match slipping away from his team. A match they most certainly should have won. Up 13-4 in the 2nd game after winning the first 15-8. But now the momentum again very much with this American team. Meanwhile, Allen about to serve, but there is a dispute going on about the possibility, I think, of the Russian team getting out of rotation here. Now, the second referee, Mr. Ventol from Cuba, is indicating that the Russian players have committed a rotational breach here, which in fact will mean a point to the USA. Now, Platonov is not happy about this at all. He's got out of his chair. Now, this is very important at this stage of the match, with the Americans ahead by 10-5. Now the first referee's involved. Platonov has made it very clear to the second referee that a breach hasn't been committed. Andrei Kuznetsov trying to indicate. Now the American crowd slow hand clapping here, but maybe they don't realise that this could work to the benefit of the American team. But the Cuban referee may well be assisting the Americans here, but it appears that the first referee has overruled the court referee. Mr. Vento is adamant, I think, that the Russians have got out of rotation. But nonetheless, the status quo remains. The score remains at 10-5 in favour of the USA. And the game will continue. Allen to serve. So plenty of high drama here at the Hick Edmondson Pavilion in this 5th and final thrilling game. And the Americans extend their lead to 11-5, coming off the Russian block.
Substitution for the Soviet Union. Number 12, Willie Teller-Heap, replacing number 6, Evgeny Krasniqov.
There's probably no more intense rivalry in sport between the USA and the USSR than there is in volleyball. They've had some epic struggles over the last 10 years, and this is living up to the very best of them. A very deep serve by Allen, which I'm sure the Soviets could have left, but they elected to play it, and the Americans win the point. 12-5. And the wheel's starting to come off the Russian team at the moment. A bad technical move there. They should have left that serve. Allen again. And once again he elects to go deep, and once again the Soviets elect to play it, and it backfires. The block from Scott Fortune at the net. And now the Americans only 2 points away from a remarkable victory. This time Allen's ploy backfires. You can see the humour in it. He's extracted 2 points from the Soviets, which they should never have conceded. It may be too late for the Soviet Union. Shatanov. It's 14-5. The Americans seemingly unstoppable in this 5th game. And a dispirited and dejected Soviet Union side, seemingly powerless to stop the Americans. And there it is. the Americans have staged one of the most remarkable comebacks, I'm sure, that's ever been seen in international volleyball. They win it in 5, 15-6, after it looked as if the Soviet Union were going to roll them in 3. An outstanding match. 2.5 pulsating hours of the best international volleyball you could wish to see, and Bill Neville absolutely delighted. Magnificent comeback by the United States. They looked to be out for the count as the Russians were heading for a 3 straight victory midway through that second game, but it didn't happen that way. A marvelous comeback by the United States with tremendous support from this capacity crowd.
Ladies and gentlemen, the men's volleyball competition in the 1990.
And Brian Ivey puts it away, and the Americans win it in 5, winning the second.